You know, there's some beautiful footage of skydiving, incredible athletes, incredible photography, but this is narrative storytelling. And to try to figure out how we're going to do this, we wanted to start, you know, Chris designed it so that we're shooting in the C-17, and then the scene is being shot in the C-17, and then we exit out of the aircraft. The scene, as depicted and written by Chris, takes place at night, at sunset, so it meant that we ended up only having 3 minutes of daylight to film the sequence every day. It meant that, you know, our photographer, you don't really have guys that know how to shoot narrative storytelling. So also we're dealing with light, which is narrow focus, which means that we have to be so accurate with how close I am to that lens. And you'll see in the first section, I have to be 3 feet within the lens, to the lens. Not 3.5, not 2.5, but 3 feet.
Yeah, at that time of day, the light is so low. If we go too early, it's too bright. If we go too late, it's too dark. And you're talking about a tolerance of about 1 minute in either direction. And Tom, when he approaches the camera, at that time of day, he has a 3-inch tolerance. If he's within a 3-inch margin, he will be out of focus. With a camera operator who's falling backwards out of a plane at 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, so we exit the aircraft at 200 miles an hour. First of all, we had to design the rig because we're above 25,000 feet, so the rig we had to build an oxygen helmet and something that was cinematic, because also it's at night, now you need to light it. It had to be tested by the RAF, the Royal Air Force, in a hyperbaric chamber. That's a chamber that takes you up to, you know, higher altitudes to test equipment and test human abilities.
The challenge of lighting a helmet, usually Halo, you'd have a face mask for oxygen and goggles, and of course you wouldn't see the actor's face. So we had to build a special helmet with a glass front for Tom, and then of course, because of the time of day we're shooting, we had to put lights inside the helmet. And of course, if there's a spark from the lights in the helmet, Tom's helmet is filled with oxygen, which means his head will catch on fire.
Not good.
Not good. Definitely negative. This was one of the requests that Tom made, that his head not catch fire.
Yes, please. If I'm going to do it, I don't want to catch fire.
Yes. So all of the props that then came into the sequence were not only props, but they were also actual life-saving devices. They're all real functioning equipment, none of which existed before Tom suggested the idea for this sequence. So now we're building new technology, not only in terms of the costume that Tom was wearing, but also the camera equipment that we would need to shoot the sequence.
Then when we're doing the sequence, to try to figure it out, I'd had at the time when we went in about 50 jumps. The guys that I was jumping with had a culmination of, I don't know, maybe 100,000 jumps together. So I had to train myself at a level to be able to figure out how to jump out of an airplane that's going 200 miles an hour, falling at a speed of over 130 miles an hour, and at times when you see that I'm swooping, going up to speeds that are close to 200 miles an hour. And then Chris puts in a physical connection where I have to get this guy and tackle him in midair. And how do we do that without deploying a parachute, you know, connecting and not being able to disconnect while we wanted to deploy head-to-head, which could cause, you know, unconsciousness and other serious...
And death.
Death. Yes, I don't want to say that. But as we were going through it, it always seems like such a good idea. As we're looking at the animatic, it looks kind of simple. And is there anything else they need to know about some of the difficulties or challenges in this sequence? High altitude?
Well, let's see, we've gone over lighting, we've gone over falling out of a perfectly functioning aircraft.
Do you want to set up the scene?
Yeah. So the scene involves Tom and Henry Cavill's character, who's works for the CIA, does not work for the IMF that Ethan Hunt does. And their relationship is immediately contentious. Ethan really doesn't want Henry on this mission. Henry feels as though Ethan's trying to get rid of him. And as Ethan is getting ready to jump out of the plane, because we like to add a complication or two, he looks down through the open lift gate and sees there's a massive lightning storm over the city they're supposed to be diving into. And he turns around to tell Henry that they're going to have to come up with another plan. And Henry, rather than arguing with Ethan, disconnects his oxygen hose, walks past him and jumps off the plane. And now Ethan has to scramble to reconnect his oxygen and jump out after Henry.
I actually do need that oxygen for the jump, by the way. So he does disconnect the oxygen, and I have to reconnected before I'm jumping out of the aircraft.
Yes, so within the shot, Tom is actually struggling to reconnect the very real life-saving device that he's wearing before jumping out of the aircraft. So in this animatic...
physical stresses, we'll show you the animatic right now. So this starts with the animatic and kind of a dialogue with all of us. So you guys have seen animatics before? Maybe not? Anyway, this is an animatic. So he gave you the setup, and this is what McHugh designs, and he says you're going to love it, and he brings it to me. Okay, you want to talk them through it?
Yeah.
Please roll just on the animatic.
So here, can we back this up, or is this as early as we have?
That's early, that's it.
All right, so this shot that we've designed right here, you'll notice, you can pause it. And notice, first and foremost, that in order to be able to see Tom's face, the camera operator has to be going out of the plane backwards. And then we had to decide how we were going to actually do that. Were we going to have the camera on some sort, we were going to have a cameraman on some sort of a rolling dolly? Were we going to have him doing it handheld? And ultimately we discovered the only way that we could do this is for the camera operator to be wearing the camera on top of his head, on a helmet, with no way of seeing through the camera. Which means that, imagine the camera's up here, I actually have to be like this in order to get a close-up of Tom. So now our camera operator is walking everywhere like this. And he can't see the image he's actually recording. He's had to rehearse it with Tom any number of times to get a sense of what it is he's doing. And he's focusing the camera manually while he's doing it. But again, all from a sense of instinct and not from being able to look through the camera. That was the first physical difference.
So you can understand why people tell us there's no way we can do this. It's just not going to happen. One take a night. And that's the kind of stuff that, but you know, that's why it took a year to figure out. We actually had to hire the camera operator, train him on how to shoot a film, and not just capturing an image.
So what we decided to do, to make this even more difficult for ourselves, is actually film part of the scene in the plane, so that you would feel as though you were on a set. And then at a specific moment, the camera and Tom would go out of the aircraft, and suddenly you'd realize you were no longer in a set, but you were in an actual free-fall environment. And what happens in the sequence is that Tom goes chasing after Henry Cavill, and before he can quite catch up to him, they're both struck by lightning. I promise we didn't actually strike Tom with lightning. Tom is then sent spinning off, and when he regains consciousness, he's separated from Henry Cavill. He can't find him anywhere. And he's looking for Henry in all directions, and finally spots him some distance away, falling backwards. And there's a hose hanging off of Henry's helmet, and he realizes that Henry's lost his oxygen. And Tom now has to recover Henry in free fall, stabilize it, take his own oxygen off, and give it to Henry, and then try to revive Henry, all while falling at terminal velocity, and an altimeter is in his ear telling him he's getting closer and closer to Paris, which is right beneath him.
So we shot this in the UAE, by the way. We never would have been able to do it anywhere else. They were very helpful. But back to the animatic, we're about to get struck by lightning. Okay?
So here they're struck by lightning.
Now I have to flip. We had to figure out how am I going to do that. I have no idea. Okay, I'm looking at this animatic. I'm thinking this is going to really be impossible. I'm looking now for Henry. Walker, his character. I put my back. I'm looking for Walker. I don't see him. I look back in camera. He drops it down into frame. He's falling. I have to dive down, I pass him, and I have to go back and somehow grab him without really hurting him or me.
So this portion here, this was really important. Can we pause for a second? This portion, we're actually told it's physically impossible for you to do this part. You have to do this in the wind tunnel. There's no way you're ever actually going to be able to physically have Tom grab him and do this oxygen bottle exchange with the time that you have. Because as Tom was pointing out, we only had 3 minutes of available light every day, but that was plenty because Tom had to perform every single piece of action in 2 minutes before he had to open his chute. And so 3 minutes was plenty of light because we only had 2 minutes of time before Tom actually hit the ground. And so we were told that this was impossible to do in the air, and of course, the title of the movie being what it is, and Tom Cruise being who he is, we decided that, actually no, we think we can actually do that part as well. Mid-air recovery, go ahead and play. changes the oxygen. He's going to flip him
Fog in his
over.
mask, you'll see.
Yeah, and then you'll see Paris coming up beneath him, and he pulls the ripcord, sends this guy away. And of course, we got very crazy and inventive with the camera angles and started doing a lot of the crazy stuff, and then realized if we're doing this for real, we can do it in a much more presentational way.
So now we're going to show you the real takes. This is raw footage, guys. This is really untreated. We're really pulling back the curtain here. So we're going to just show you the real raw takes, and you're going to hear my breathing because each take it's like running an 800-meter sprint. It was really surprising how challenging it was. So you're going to hear the breathing. We gave you the story on it, and do you want to just roll it and we'll give you a sense?
Yeah,
it's just really raw footage. There's essentially 3 takes. We did over 106 jumps to get these 3 takes. So we're just basically showing you raw footage, okay?
All 3 of these takes, when you see the ultimate sequence put together, they'll all be stitched together, so it'll all feel as though it is one continuous take. The lightning storm will be added.
There'll be music.
Yeah.
Nice music and stuff, so, okay.
So this is really us showing you kind of this is the ingredients to the omelet. We're not even showing the omelet. Okay.
So please just roll that.
Hold up, Walker. We're going to have to go around.
I'm thinking, give me that oxygen. I need the oxygen. There's the 3 feet. There's the flipping out of the aircraft.
It's after he's been struck by lightning.
To be getting thrown by the C-17's wing off its wing.
And this is part 2. This is the second jump.
Oh, Vic. Walker! Walker, do you copy? Walker! Walker, do you copy?
And this is part 3. So we have a separate jump.
I'm just hanging on for dear life here. At this point, the mask will start to unfog and you'll start to see Henry's face.
Walker! Walker!
Paris will be below us as it's approaching very fast. Hear that beep? It's telling me, open, 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 open. Open, open, open.
The hardest part is staying in my director's chair while falling behind the camera. But I pulled it off. I did it.
So now we'll show you the EPK behind the scenes and just give you a sense of the camera operator and us trying to accomplish this shot.
Listen, we're gonna have to go around.
Three inches of tolerance.
So, hope you enjoyed that.
I know they know this, but normally what you get is, and then we're going to have this great scene where we're going to let a stunt guy jump out of a plane at 35,000 feet. But no, with these guys, it's Tom going to jump out at 35,000 feet. Then he's going to catch a guy going 200 miles an hour before he splatters on Paris. I don't know how they do it, but it's just amazing, guys. You are incredible.
So we want to entertain you all. We want to make something special.
It's just extraordinary.